and it's a cold winter's day. I'm lost in dreams. It must have been love, but now it's over. It must have been good, but somehow I lost it. Roxette, 1987. The Milwaukee Sharks were, without a doubt, the biggest mistake in NFL history, at least since the 1952 Dallas Texans. In 3 seasons in the NFL, the Sharks have only 2 wins, both in their first season. This set a new NFL record for 2 consecutive seasons without a win. But it wasn't just the poor play on the field that kept Milwaukeeans from loving the new team. The city already had its own home team, the Green Bay Packers. There simply wasn't room for an American Football Conference team in this corner of the Midwest. A new head coach, his 4th, had just taken office, along with a new general manager, and they were planning to make trades this offseason. Jim Carlson was preparing for his 4 p.m. newscast on local ABC. Over the past 14 years, Jim has become a familiar face and voice in Milwaukee. In addition to his regular spot on air, the network relied on his calm, confident voice whenever it was necessary to interrupt programs for breaking news. He was at the top of his game, and the 3 local Emmy Awards on his shelf proved it. Jim Carlson prided himself on being a journalist. From the moment he was given a 6-transistor radio, which he hid under his pillow to listen to long-distance M stations at night, he knew his place was on the air. Originally from Southern California, he began his career in radio while pursuing a bachelor's degree in journalism at the University of Southern California. He started out as a classical music anchor at Cusk FM, and during his senior year and for a year after graduation, he worked as a news, weather, and traffic reporter for several local radio stations. He loved California and most likely would have stayed there forever if not for Tuesday, September 11, 2001. That morning, he was doing weather and traffic broadcasts for an M-Talk radio station, an FM oldies station, and a country western station in the Inland Empire. Jim and other reporters were watching monitors and news outlets as reports came in of the first plane hitting the World Trade Center tower. Every station urgently demanded special editions, and even music stations that had never broadcast news suddenly switched to the 24/7 news format. He finished his shift well after midnight and was supposed to be back on air at 5 a.m. After his shift on Thursday, Jim walked into the military recruiter's office and signed up for the U.S. Army. After 4 years of active duty, including a stint in Germany and 1 deployment to Afghanistan, Jim transferred to the reserves and decided to get a master's degree. While he was overseas, his father, the head brewer of one of the major national brewing companies, was transferred to his home brewery in Milwaukee, and when Jim finished active service, he enrolled in a master's degree in journalism at Marquette University. He quickly fell in love with Milwaukee. Even faster, he realized that he had fallen in love with one of the undergraduate students, the future teacher Linda McKenzie. They didn't have to wait long, they soon became Mr. and Mrs. Carlson. After completing his master's degree, Jim landed his first television job in Milwaukee, covering City Hall, the police department, and the county courthouse. 2 years later, he was already the anchor of the most popular local newscast. It's hard to forget the moments when a television or radio host begins a broadcast with those 4 alarming words, "We're interrupting this program." John Charles Daly reporting for CBS Radio on Sunday morning that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. Walter Cronkite announcing that the president had been shot in Dallas. Charles Gibson, already on the air on Good Morning America, describing the 767 crashing into the second tower. The sounds of American history that will remain in the memory until the last recordings fade. But most of the day-to-day news is pretty routine. When we hear them, we don't always realize or understand how they can affect our lives. When Jim handed over to a sports reporter during his April 12th episode, he could never have imagined that he himself would become part of this story less than a year later. It looks like rumors of a Sharks trade with the Carolina Panthers for Heisman Trophy winner tight end Mark Lavaliere have been confirmed. With this and other sports news today, Tom Delano. Volume. Jim must have looked like a character from The Walking Dead as he walked toward the Madison Hotel. The elevator ride to the top floor seemed as long as a cross-country flight. Then it's a slow walk down the hallway to their room, a huge corner suite overlooking the city. "I'm lucky," Jim muttered under his breath. "It's the 20th floor, and I have one of the few rooms in the hotel with a sliding glass door and a balcony. I could just go out and jump over the railing, but with my current luck, I would survive the fall, becoming a quadriplegic. I wonder if Linda and that bastard would come and visit me on Sundays at my boarding school." Jim began to collect his things. A shaving kit, clothes, he put everything back into the suitcase. On the bed lay an expensive set of lingerie, a bra, panties, and garter belt, which Linda had prepared in advance. He thought about urinating on them or throwing it all in the trash, but decided that while Linda deserved such treatment, the maids did not. He left a note for staff explaining that the linen was brand new and anyone could pick it up. He decided to leave her suitcase in the room too. He didn't care. Just like Linda didn't care about me, he thought. Beyond the humiliation, betrayal, and disappointment that Linda, with Dee's encouragement and the approval of their so-called friends, had inflicted on him, Jim realized that he had never felt so weak, depressed, and alone. 4 years in the army and 18 years of broadcasting, he thought he had seen it all. But it was from the outside, through the eyes of a reporter who tells other people's stories while keeping his distance. Today, he found himself in the middle of his own, deeply personal story, and it was a damn uncomfortable place. For almost 15 years, it has always been a Jim and Linda story. And now he stood on the sidelines, watching as Linda wrote her own story without him. This room in Madison cost him a considerable amount, but Jim believed that it was a justified expense. Linda had been tense, distant, and as if not herself all month. She became irritable and found fault with everything, most often blaming Jim for everything. But lately her mood had improved a little, and she was looking forward to the weekend. Jim hoped this would be a chance for both of them to reconnect after a difficult February. Their 15th wedding anniversary was in June, and Jim had already planned a dream trip to Hawaii, hoping to share the surprise with Linda in the cozy atmosphere of their weekend. But now, sitting on the wide bed they were supposed to share, Jim wondered whether she would return tomorrow, or perhaps she would come to her senses and come tonight with an apology and requests for forgiveness. But suddenly he realized he no longer needed to think about what Linda wanted or what she needed. Whatever motivated her, it was no longer his problem. Maybe it would never be his problem again. Damn, how bad it is. Even in Afghanistan, under enemy fire, when the guys were falling, I kept my cool, worked on autopilot, following the instructions, what to do, how to survive. And today, no plan and no preparation for this. Jim briefly considered driving home, getting his gun, and heading to the bastard's house. He was sure that the address and gate code were preserved somewhere in their closed archives at the studio. But then what, he thought. I could leave the weapon at home and just challenge the bastard to a fight, one-on-one. But with his size, I could really get hurt. And most importantly, victory or defeat, it won't change anything for Linda. In her eyes, I'll still look pathetic, so there's no point in it. He even remembered an article he once wrote about real voodoo curses that can be bought on the internet. I could order one each for Linda and this bastard. If there's a discount for the third one, I'll take another one for Dee. However, in the end, the choice turned out to be easy. Jim realized that he couldn't solve anything here in Madison. He made a mental list of what he needed to do, grabbed his things, checked out of the hotel, and drove home. As he started his SUV, Jim noticed that the 80s radio station was still playing at full volume. On the way here, early in the evening, he and Linda happily sang along to their favorite songs. But now Jim could not stand the cheerful music and was already reaching to switch to the news when the classic Roxette hit sounded. It must have been love, but it's over now. It was all that I wanted. Now I'm living without. Jim was forced to pull over to the side of the road. The pain in my chest became unbearable. He was sure it wasn't a heart attack, but the feeling of his heart finally breaking. Most people considered Jim to be a fairly strong person who was difficult to break. But at that moment, he wished he could just cry. He was sad, unhappy, and almost lost. but there was no relief from tears. Finally, as Jim drove into their neighborhood, he thought about the children. Emma was 14 and just starting high school. Tommy was 12 and going to high school. It was funny that he remembered them. Jim was sure that Linda was not thinking about them at all now. The kids were spending the weekend with Jim's parents, and the plan was to meet at church on Sunday morning and have breakfast together after the service. Jim considered himself lucky that the children would not witness the explosion that would occur if Linda did return home. Immediately after Linda left Morrison's with Lavalier, Dee tried unsuccessfully to smooth things over by insisting that Linda would return home on Saturday so Jim could take her back. She insisted it was an exceptionally rare incident, just one night. Just one night in your whole life, she said. But the most offensive thing was that Jim had to simply accept, forgive, approve, and forget, accept the betrayal, forgive Linda, approve of what she and all their friends had pulled off, and forget that it even happened. Jim knew that he would never be able to accept all of this, as Dee and, apparently, Linda wanted. He couldn't even imagine forgiving her, let alone forgetting her. But the more Jim thought about it, the more clearly he realized that the problem was not whether he could forget this night. The question is whether Linda will ever be able to forget this night. She can apologize to me all she wants, but at night, when we make love, who will she think about? At some point, when she's enjoying herself, won't she scream, "Oh yeah, take me, Mark"? And when we fall asleep, will she dream about him, imagining that it's him lying next to her? Jim understood. This was not just one night out of thousands in their marriage. How Pearl Harbor was just a Sunday morning in Hawaii. How 9/11 was an ordinary Tuesday. Life is made up of those one days, but some of them are the ones when everything goes to hell. Yes, tonight is just one night, Jim thought out loud. But for me, it is that night when everything in my life went to pieces, and life will never be the same again, no matter what version of events Linda tried to convince me of. If Linda pulls this off, no. If I let her pull it off, if tonight becomes her night of golden memories, then even if we stay together, our marriage will go downhill. Jim mused. Linda and Dee think it's all okay because the bastard is a football star, which makes this night a unique opportunity for Linda. Maybe she was just used to taking me for granted, because when we met, I was an ordinary guy, and what I have achieved now happened gradually over the years of our marriage. But in this city, more people recognize me than this great and mighty Mark bastard Lavalier. Come on, all those millions that the Sharks spent on him, and last season nothing. No yards, no wins. Of course, he missed 2 games due to an inflamed nail. Does he have a Heisman? I don't care, I have 3 Emmys. Yes, he's big and black, with great size and the confidence that goes with it. But what happens to him when he gets traded again? I don't fall for this whole star gimmick. Hell, he's an NFL player, but that's no reason for Linda to lose her head. My Uncle Frank played 4 seasons for the 49ers and 3 more for the Packers. His off-season barbecues were always attended by famous players. Linda had seen them, with their big names and huge Super Bowl rings, but she had never been that crazy. There is something more to this disgusting story. There had to be some deep-seated, sick reason why she just had to humiliate me like that, and it wasn't just a pretty face and muscles and that disgusting grin. Maybe she's a size freak and I didn't know about it. Or maybe she was always looking for a large black size, and I didn't even notice. They've probably already finished the first round, but who knows what will happen next. Linda never let me come from behind, but I bet she'll have it for him tonight, Jim thought. At that moment, he received a FaceTime call from an unknown number. He usually doesn't answer calls like this, but this time he had a hunch about where he was coming from. He answered and turned on the recording. Lavalier appeared on the screen shouting, "Hey, cuckold!" In the background, Jim heard Linda's voice. "Please don't call Jim that." Lavalier continued, "Your wife is the hottest broad I've ever had. She's as fun as a Dyson vacuum cleaner, and now I'm going to do it to her from behind. Isn't it beautiful?" Linda's voice came again. "Jim, I can't wait to get home so I can teach you a few of Mark's tricks. I knew it would be beneficial for both of us. It's just one night, darling, and tomorrow I'll be back so you can feel like you're in control again. Mark even promised to give me some of his drugs. I never thought it was possible to get these emotions so strongly over and over again. The call ended with a few snarky comments from Mark and something unintelligible from Linda. Jim wanted to tell Linda where she could put the bastard's drug, but the connection was lost. If blood could boil, Jim would literally explode right now. One night, the devil is out of two, Jim shouted into the phone, although the call had already ended. Fuck you, Linda, and your bastard, and Dee, and Dave, and Jane, and Phil, and the rest. This one night will turn my whole life into a fucking nightmare. This needs to end now, and Linda needs to get her ass out of his bed and get her brain back from La La Land. I'll help her understand exactly what her one-night stand will mean to us right now. Jim and Linda's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. But he had a trick. A few months ago, he installed an emergency calling app on both of their phones and made himself the emergency contact on Linda's phone. Even if the phone is turned off or in silent mode, calling with the emergency call feature activated will cause the phone to emit a high-pitched sound like a fire alarm and can only be turned off by answering the call or removing the battery. He placed an emergency call, and when Lavalier answered, Jim yelled, "Give the phone to my wife now, you bastard." She can't talk right now, man. Her mouth is busy, haha. The app had another feature useful in the event of an earthquake or tornado, the ability to turn on an even louder and shrill alarm, which Jim immediately activated. Enough, came the answer. Give the phone to that prostitute now, you bastard. Hi, Jim. Are you Linda Mackenzie Carlson? You know that. Do I know? Is it true? Did you book the penthouse suite at the Madison Hotel this evening? Yes, we booked. But then why aren't you in the penthouse at the Madison Hotel right now? Jim didn't let Linda answer. Do you live at 11942 Northwood Lane? Of course, I live there. Then why aren't you at 11942 Northwood Lane? You know why, Jim? Don't worry. It's just sex, the most fantastic sex I've ever had, but tomorrow I'll be back, and we'll have our whole lives ahead of us. I can't say that the prospect of being with you for the rest of my life looks all that attractive right now, you girl of easy vibrability. Don't say such things, Jim. Stop acting like that, and I'll stop saying it. Don't forget, I'm a journalist. I'm looking for the truth, and right now you really are a prostitute. And I don't know if I want you back or not. The jury is still out. Oh, you will forget about this fit of anger tomorrow, when I allow you to conquer me again. Mark says I don't have to worry and everything will be fine when I get home. You and I are meant for each other, Jim. Why aren't we together right now, easy girl? Honey, you know why. Don't ever call me anything other than Jim until I say you can. To be fair, I won't call you anything other than Linda either. Well, with the exception of the words girl of easy virtue, bitch, girl for the night, trash, witch, hag, and creature. That's not cute at all. Jim heard the crack in her voice this time. Let's not talk about cute, okay? Bitch, do you have any idea how much damage you have done to our marriage and to me personally? I don't think we can fix this. I'm sorry this upsets you, Jim. You know I love you. I know it's hard to believe today, and you are sorry that this upsets me. But you're not at all sorry that you went and slept with that bastard, right? Under the circumstances, this is the most pompous, selfish nonsense I have ever heard from you. This mouth has only recently given pleasure to a dirty and disgusting man, so I won't talk about its veracity, and I don't care if the truth upsets you. Yes, I love you, Jim. I will make it up to you both in bed and out of it starting tomorrow. Over time, you will see how this will give our marriage a new and exciting turn. Well, we won't share the same bed until your sty and HIV test results come back. If they find something on you or get pregnant from the bastard or whoever you slept with this weekend, it will definitely add a new, exciting twist to our relationship. I need you to take control of my body again tomorrow. It won't happen until the test results come back, and only if they are negative, maybe not even then. Unless you used protection, right? Jim, well, I thought so. In that case, take a shower and douche before you get home, or I won't even let you in the door. It's not that I care whether you're clean or not. I just don't want you leaving traces of him in my house. And before I let you in, you will sign a marriage contract. What? Marriage contract? What is this? As soon as I got home this evening, I called my friend Dan Andrews, a divorce lawyer who appears on our shows as a guest expert. Before this is over, I will have my revenge legally on both you and that bastard. He will pay dearly for considering you a free, married pleasure, and you for offering yourself to him, but I digress. There's a forecast of rain tomorrow, so Dan's regular golf game will be canceled, and he can meet for breakfast to discuss all the details. But here's what's for sure. You will sign a prenuptial agreement. If we get back together, and that's a big if you ever do anything like that again to anyone, it will take effect. If you ever mess with this bastard, it will take effect. If you call me Mark during sex even once, even after 15 years, it will take effect. What do you mean takes effect, Jim? Dan and I will work out the details, but in general terms, this means immediate filing for divorce, division of joint assets 75% to 25% in my favor. I get full custody of the children, and you go back to your maiden name. We may add more by tomorrow, but this is the short version. What if I don't sign? Glad you asked. This will make my choice much easier. If you refuse to sign this prenuptial agreement, my lawyer will hand over your divorce papers to you very soon right at your school. Mark says you'll have to take me back. If we divorce, it will destroy you financially, and the court will give me full custody of Emma and Tommy. You don't even have any real evidence that anything happened other than me leaving with Mark. Don't be so cocky. I'm sure the internet is full of recordings of your seduction at Morrison's. I recorded your bedroom FaceTime video call. Are even wedding rings covered in traces of it? By the time we get to trial, I will have enough evidence to make you the worst mother the state of Wisconsin has ever seen. You really hate me, don't you? It wasn't supposed to be like this. Absolutely right, not like that. This is the first meaning I heard in your words. Hatred? You showed your hatred for me very clearly this evening. To think that this could be normal for me means that not only do you not love me, but hell, you don't even really know me. I know you. I love you. Funny way to show it. 6 hours ago, I could honestly say that I love you like no one else has ever loved you. But you killed my love, you killed her, trampled her, threw her into the street, and then shit on her. You and your bastard lover. He is not my lover. Have you already given him pleasure? Have you already had sex with him? I quit. Now I don't hate you, I don't love you, I don't respect you, and I certainly don't appreciate you as much as I did just a few hours ago. I just don't care about you. That's the only way to deal with what you've done to me today. Listen carefully. From now on, I don't care about you, Linda. Tonight you proved that I don't care. Maybe you did what you did because you love the asshole or his dick. Maybe you just love yourself more than you love me or Emma or Tommy or anyone in the world, and you think you can have that special night. I'll never care about you again. Honey, I'm so sorry. I just told you not to call me darling, honey, lover, or any other endearing nicknames, got it? Speaking of names, is asshole right next to you and hearing all this? No, after his third. Oh, never mind. He dozed off. Okay then, from now on, the adults are in charge, and I'm going to give you some pointers for your life, whether you like it or not. Follow my instructions to the letter, and maybe you and I will have a chance to save this marriage, if only for the sake of Emma and Tommy. I've already settled everything with Yellow Cab. I have asshole's address and his gate code. How do you know where he lives, Jim? He is very secretive about his personal life. He said that no one except you and me and our friends will know about tonight. I know people. These people know where the bastard lives. Now I know too. In 15 minutes, a taxi will pull up in his circular driveway. Be on the porch dressed and waiting. I don't want the driver to honk and wake up the bastard and the whole neighborhood. When yellow cab picks you up, they call me right away so I know when to expect you. You must be home within 45 minutes of getting into the taxi. I won't sleep, but I don't intend to talk to you until tomorrow after a meeting with my lawyer. Come back here and we might have a chance, however small, to work things out. If you don't show up, it means you've already made all the decisions for me. The first decision will be this. I will send out the disgusting video recording of the bastard's call. Your mom and dad will definitely have something to talk about at breakfast tomorrow. I have a list of addresses ready, all your relatives, the director of your school, and indeed, the entire school council. If I send this out tonight, Pastor Ray can include it in his Sunday sermon, not the footage itself, of course, but a discussion of such concepts as honor, loyalty, morality, depravity, hatred, deceit, and betrayal. There's enough sermons here for a couple of months. To show that I'm not kidding, I already have a video of the bastard ready. If you return home, you can try to dissuade me from sending the mailing. Just so you know, the kids are staying with my parents for the night and will all meet at church on Sunday. After church, they will pick them up and then take them to school on Monday. My father has already obtained an emergency restraining order against the children. It's good to play golf with a retired judge. Simply put, you won't be able to approach our children when they're at their grandparents' unless you're with me. My babies. I should have thought about them last night. It seems like the 3 people who believed you loved them were just conveniently forgotten. Apparently you didn't care. Or have you decided that all 3 of us are just getting in the way of your quest for perfect pleasure? Linda began to sob. Don't wake up the bastard, get dressed, and get your sorry ass out to the front porch alive. Jim hung up. Well, that went well, he thought. At least she listened. I hope she listened at least a little bit. About half an hour later, Jim received a call from the yellow cab dispatcher. Has my wife been taken? I'm sorry, Mr. Carlson. Our driver drove up to the porch. There was a Lamborghini in the driveway, so we're pretty sure it was the same house. After waiting 5 minutes, the driver beeped briefly twice, waited another 5 and gave one long horn. Then I waited another 10 minutes, but she never came out. Sorry, no need to pay. It's a shame it didn't work out that way for both of you. Jim hung up and sat down, sad and depressed. I thought I had a chance to fight to bring her back here and do my best to return her mind and, most importantly, her heart to me. What happened? I thought she would agree to return home, understanding that this was a condition of any possibility of reconciliation. Either her tears and sorry were just a distraction so she could continue her fairy tale sex, or the bastard woke up and forced her back to bed. What difference does it make? Nobody forced her to leave Morrison with him. It was her own choice, with a little help and a lot of support from Dee. Jim thought about his next step. Part of him wanted to go into Hulk mode and destroy family photos, burn Linda's wedding dress and stuff all her junk into black plastic bags and throw them on the lawn. But he decided that breaking something was not in his nature and would distract attention from Linda's actions that night. They would immediately call him a bad guy or a psychopath. Getting Linda out of his life in such a physical way would have been nice, but he couldn't help but imagine how the news channels would relish. Local TV presenter has gone crazy and destroyed his own home. Watch the video at 11 o'clock. By 6 in the morning, Jim was dead tired from lack of sleep, anxiety, and anger. He took off the suit he had worn the night before, showered, shaved, and went to the original pancake house in Brookfield to meet his friend and lawyer Dan. But before he left, he used Linda's laptop and sent the video of the bastard to her mom and dad with a short note. Hi, Mom and Dad. It was supposed to be a special night for Jim, but I got a better offer and upgraded it to a higher class. Enjoy the video. After breakfast, he will send it out to everyone else on his list. While enjoying Swedish pancakes and drinking a lot of coffee, Jim and Dan discussed the divorce papers that could be served as soon as Jim gave his word. In case the marriage could still be saved, they drew up a prenuptial agreement. The conversation was not easy. Since last night, Jim couldn't stop talking to himself, trying to make sense of the situation Linda had put him in. Although he didn't cry, his voice broke when he told Dan about his problems. On the way home, Jim's phone was blowing up with calls and messages from Dave, Dee, and Linda's parents. As soon as he parked at the house, he called his father-in-law and mother-in-law back and told them about the videotape and summarized the events of the previous night, including the attempt to send Linda home in a taxi. Her mother cried almost all the time, but her father listened to everything and became very angry with his only daughter. After that call, Jim sent the video to everyone else on his contact list and just sat at the kitchen table and waited. It's 10:30 in the morning and still no Linda. From 10:30 to 11:30 he was worried. By 11:30 he started to get angry. Around 12:45 p.m., Jim received a short message from Linda asking him to check his email. "My dear Jim, I heard the taxi pull up last night. I was fully dressed and already had one foot out the door, but I realized that my adventure was not over yet. I'll come home late this afternoon, and it will be the same me walking through the door, I promise. Nothing will truly change, and remember that I only love you. I enjoyed my only fantasy in my life. It met all my expectations and even more. I'm so glad I did this for myself." Mark was a thoughtful man and an incredible lover, and this experience was unforgettable. But today I need to leave him and return to you. I know you're probably a little upset, and you'll probably have questions about how this all happened, and I'll try to answer them without hurting you. I was very surprised when Mark approached me at Morrison's. He's famous and big and handsome, and he just took me into his arms on the dance floor. I don't know what else to say. From the first dance, I wanted Mark to have sex with me. I can't explain it to you, but I wanted him, and he wanted me. It was the best sex of my life. Mark lasts much longer and longer than you. But there is no true love with him, it's only for you, and I can't wait to continue our life together. Tonight you can begin to bring me back in body and soul. In a few days, this will seem like just a small bump in the road for us. Thank you for allowing me to have the most incredible sexual experience. I will make up for it by sharing with you what I learned from Mark. Now, no part of my body will be forbidden to you. I'm so sorry that I always denied you other types of sex, but Mark showed me how really good it can be. I learned to experience pleasure only from the way he skillfully engaged in another type of sex with me. I can't wait to see if it's as good when you and I try it. Don't be angry or sad because you weren't there first. Just enjoy it. It's worth it, I promise. I'm also completely shaved there now. I know you asked me about this many times, and I always refused. Mark likes his women to be smooth, so I tried it, and now I regret not doing it for you sooner. I know you'll love the new look. Mark is done with me. I'll get dressed and be ready to come back to you this afternoon after we have lunch. I will only be wearing a blue dress, but I know that you will be happy to see it on me again. Mark wants to give me a ride home in his Lamborghini. I can't wait for you to meet him. He's a wonderful person and nothing like what you might have imagined. I can't wait to get home this afternoon so you can make me yours again. Your loving wife, Linda. Jim screamed. What a blatant lie. Just a bump in the road. I'm so glad I did this for myself. Yes, sure. She didn't hear anything I said last night. If I take her back, she will always have that incredible evening that I will have to compete with. When she goes shopping, I'll be afraid that she's secretly dating that bastard again. Every day when I get home from work, I'll expect to see a Lamborghini in the driveway, or worse, a note on the kitchen table, a note saying she just has to do something else. How many therapy sessions will it take to achieve any degree of trust? How many therapists' kids will I send to college? Perhaps it's as simple as Linda being carried away by the fame and glamour of being a professional footballer. But this cannot be the only reason for all this chaos. It's not that I'm nobody. I have the best ratings of any news reporter in town. I was in this town long before Asshole graduated, and I'll be here long after he's traded to the Sharks for a third-round draft pick. Unless Asshole convinces her to stay with him until Sunday, my personal hell will begin today. Linda will no doubt return home on some kind of high, either from sex or from illicit substances, or maybe both, and I will have to bring her back down to earth, into a reality that will not suit her. Neither of us. Jim quickly wrote back to Linda. Linda, I'm sitting at the kitchen table in the house we've shared for the last 14 years. Last night, when I finally got here, my first thought was to take revenge on you, burn your wedding dress, flush your jewelry down the toilet, cut you out of all family photos, and break everything that might be dear to you with a bat. Just like you destroyed everything that was close to my heart. But I realized that even if I burn this house down, it will not help calm you down. When you return, everything will look normal. But appearances are deceiving. Under this surface, everything is destroyed, nothing remains intact. At first glance, I am rational and calm. But inside, I'm seething with rage against you, an asshole, but most of all against you. I didn't lose you because of him. You have lost yourself. It was an unequal fight, you asshole, and our so-called friends conspired behind my back. Your cute ploy of going into the ladies' room and escaping out the back door was the coward's way. Instead of meeting me and giving me a chance to talk to you, you just ran away. You can say that you saved me from a fight with the asshole, but I found out everything about him. He never served. He's never been in combat. He didn't kill anyone, and I was killed. From what you've told me, you're just going to show up here today and spout some bullshit like I'm back and nothing has changed, and say it's time for me to take you back. There will be no taking away today, most likely never, but certainly not now. I will not have sex or even sleep in the same bed with you until you bring me a negative STD test, as well as an HIV test in a few months. I know you think asshole is pure, but all it takes is one prostitute to give him something that he will then pass on to the next prostitute, who will in turn pass it on to her unsuspecting husband. Sorry, but I live in Realville, USA, and that's how things are here. From the day we met, I never thought that I would have to defend myself from you. Now I will be on guard every day for the rest of our lives. You will say that everything is back to normal, but for us it will never return to what it was. Call it normal if you want, but you will be deceiving yourself. Early Friday evening, I had a faithful, loving wife. Now I have a wife, at least for now, who is an easy girl, a coward, a liar, a cheater, and just a disgusting person. It won't change or go back to normal, whatever that means. I have felt more alone in the last few hours than I have ever felt in my life. Now it's your turn. You will begin to feel how lonely you really are. We will be together in our home, but you will be alone. I will stay for the children, at least for now, and they will receive 100% of my love. And all you'll get is my TV self, the smiling face that everyone sees when they turn on Eyewitness News. My real self died around 9:30 p.m. yesterday. You spent the night at the ball with a handsome prince from Fantasyland. I spent the night on Mr. Toad's wild journey. For the first time since we met, we have completely different memories of the same event. Whether we stay together or get divorced, my life will no longer be a reflection of yours. Is this what you call a relationship? Don't doubt my resolve, don't test me in any way, and don't belittle what you've done. Don't try to defend or minimize your actions or the actions of an asshole. And this is crucial, never mention his name or how wonderful your experience or adventure was last night. I know what you did. I have a video. You proudly told me all this in your letter and rubbed my nose into your dirt. I don't care if he's bigger than me. Yeah, he's bigger shit than I thought existed. That's all I need to know. This is not just a bump in the road, it's a fork in the road, and now I doubt that you and I will go down the same path. I'm sending you the attachment if you even care. This is the itinerary for the trip I planned for us for our 15th anniversary in June. First-class tickets and 4- and 5-star hotel accommodations on the 3 islands of Hawaii make for a dream vacation. I've been working on this for weeks and picked out the best and was going to share it with you this weekend in Madison. See, I can create once-in-a-lifetime moments too. A few minutes ago, I canceled everything. Weeks of high expectations and work went down the drain. If we're still together by June, I'll take you to Wendy's for our anniversary. When you return, you will have to knock or ring the doorbell. Your keys no longer work. I'm waiting for your arrival. James R. Carlson. Jim never heard back from Linda. The hour of the day has passed. The same thing happened within 2 and 3 hours. Just like last night, he thought. He half expected to get a text saying that asshole wanted her to stay another night and that he would pick her up after Sunday brunch. If that had happened, he would have called Dan and asked him to serve Linda with divorce papers at her school on Monday. At 3:30, the phone rang. At first, Jim thought it was Linda, but the call ID revealed it was Bob Adams, a weekend news producer for his channel. "Hey, Jim, I hate to bother you on Saturday, but we're short on a presenter for the 6 p.m. episode. Ruth Ann's mother is in intensive care, and things are pretty serious. Steve, her backup host, just said he blew his back playing with the kids this morning. Can you help?" "Of course, Bob, no problem. Still no plans for the evening. See you at the studio." Jim's first thought was, "Thank you, Lord." He wanted to be in the studio much more than sit in an empty house. Let Linda wait on the porch until he returns, especially since her key no longer fits. Jim got into the car, drove to the studio, looked at the top news list, discussed transitions with a sports news anchor, and went to the dressing room. Then he sat down at the computer and made a couple of edits to his teleprompter texts. At 5:15 p.m., he received a short text from Linda, "Leaving soon and I love you." Jim didn't answer. At 18 o'clock, the screensaver turned on, and after 15 seconds, Jim began. "Good evening, I'm Jim Carlson, replacing Ruth Ann Walker, and our big news today is..." World news, national, local, the first weather forecast, the announcement of a sports block, and now the first commercial break. More news, sports, a story about people, and a second pause. Afterwards, Jim's co-host announced the weather forecast, and then they showed a recorded interview with a candidate for Congress. Then there was a full weather forecast and a third commercial break. After the third block, there are several evergreen local stories, and then a repeat of the main news of the day. The last pause, 8 minutes before the end of the hour, was always short. While two 30-second commercials, a public service announcement, and a promo for network programs were running, Bob, the producer, spoke into Jim's earpiece. "Jim, we have urgent news. The text is already on the teleprompter. Mark Lavalier of the Sharks died in a car accident 25 minutes ago. There are other victims. We'll shorten the pause and come straight to you in 3, 2, 1. And breaking news on Eyewitness News. Sharks tight end Mark Lavalier, as well as 2 others, were killed in a high-speed car crash. Lavalier died on the spot. His passenger, a 39-year-old high school teacher and mother of 2, was taken to Lutheran Memorial Hospital in critical condition. Lavalier reportedly openly courted a woman in front of her husband and friends at Morrison's Supper Club on Friday night. They allegedly spent the night at Lavalier's Shorewood home, and police believe he was driving her home to Whitefish Bay when the crash occurred. According to police, Lavalier's black Lamborghini was traveling at more than 90 miles per hour on North Lake Drive, ran a red light, and crashed into a compact car that was already in the intersection. The driver and passenger of that vehicle were killed, and at this time we do not know if there were any other passengers. This video of rescuers using hydraulic shears on Lavalier's car was just sent in by a viewer. We will continue to provide details as they become available. Stay tuned to Eyewitness News and also watch our episode at 11 p.m. As a reminder, Heisman Trophy winner and Sharks tight end DeMarcus "Mark" Lavalier died in a car crash that killed 2 other people and left Lavalier's passenger in critical condition. Jim Carlson worked for you. Good night. Bob, the director, immediately spoke into the earpiece. "Jim, are you just making up half the story now? The news director will kill us, both of us. Fred will hug us and give us another bonus when we win an Emmy and probably an App Award. Believe me, everything was 1000% true. I checked with my source, that is, with myself." One of the assistants said to Jim, "Jim, Deputy Chief Harding is waiting for you. He says he can give you a ride, whatever that means." Jim walked out of the area and saw Warren Harding. "Jim, I have bad news, but I heard your broadcast. so I know you know at least part of what's going on, right? Linda probably went to Memorial. Can you give me a ride? That's why I'm here. I'll tell you everything on the way. Warren and Jim have known each other since Jim was a reporter and Warren was a detective. We drove with the flashing lights on, and Jim told us what Linda did with this athlete. She spent the night with Lavalier. I called her late at night, and she agreed to return home immediately, but apparently her plans had changed. Do you have any details? Lavalier appeared to be driving at 90 miles per hour. He ran a red light and crashed into a Kia Soul carrying a pregnant woman and her 3-year-old daughter. Both died. Linda is in surgery now. According to the latest information, everything is on the verge. She and Lavalier were also known to have taken illegal substances. There may be some left in his car. Harding dropped Jim off at the hospital's main entrance. Jim thanked him for his help, and Warren replied, "If I or the department can help in any way, let me know." At the hospital, Jim called the parents and asked them to keep the children with them for a few days. The children were already asleep when he arrived, so he promised to stop by in the morning before they left for church to tell everything about their mother. He asked his parents not to turn on the news until Emma and Tim were asleep. He then called Linda's parents. They had just heard Jim's news broadcast and had received a message from Linda earlier, so they were deathly scared that it was about her. Jim told everything he knew at that moment. They promised to come to the hospital within an hour. The day before, Jim had been afraid that he had chickened out by not throwing Linda's things out on the lawn in garbage bags. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had relented, inviting her back, albeit under conditions that included a prenuptial agreement. It wouldn't have worked anyway, but that doesn't matter now. Sooner or later there will be a divorce, which will not be good for Linda, but now there is no hurry. Jim didn't regret sending her a screenshot of the canceled tickets to Hawaii. There was little news at the hospital. A few hours later, the doctor came out with information. They had to amputate Linda's left leg at the knee. She had serious internal injuries. Her spleen and one kidney were removed. Thanks to the airbag, Linda's face was badly bruised, but not disfigured. It was still unknown whether there was any damage to the brain or nervous system, and she was still in a coma. Linda's parents, Bruce and Anna, arrived at the hospital soon after, but were unable to help beyond keeping Jim company. They said they had no place more important to go than here. Jim called his boss, Fred Thompson, the news director at the station. Fred said, "I was furious and ready to fire you, but then I realized that your newscast was about Linda, right?" "Yes, unfortunately. I should have already packed my things and left home, but that will have to be postponed. Everything that was said in the report is true. Warren Harding told me on the way here that the driver of the car Lavalier hit was pregnant, and her 3-year-old daughter was killed. Now we have all this information. It becomes the local story of the year. There are so many different sides to it. I'm sorry you found yourself in the middle of all this. Your newscast has gone viral, and the network will be using it in their reports tomorrow. Expect a call from Good Morning America tomorrow for an interview on Monday. Oh yes, since you, as the next of kin, have already been notified, Linda's name could be published in the press at any time. Do you want us to wait for official confirmation, or can we publish now? You can publish it. Thank you, Jim. Take the whole week off. No one is waiting for you here. We'll contact you later. Don't worry, Jim." The next thing Jim had to do was talk to the children, and he was terrified of explaining to them what had happened. At the ages of 14 and 12, they had to be told the whole truth, but try not to hurt them too much. Jim knew that the story was already in the news, and when the children returned to school, they might be affected by the rumors, so it was better if they heard everything from him. Emma and Tommy are old enough to know why their mom is in the hospital and why she's on the news. Jim spent the night in the hospital, went home in the morning to change clothes, and then went to his parents for breakfast before the church service. He arrived before Emma and Tommy got up. Jim thought it best to tell the kids right away so they could pray for their mom at church and get support from friends. He was also worried that if he didn't tell them, some well-wisher or friend's parents might say something like, "We're so sorry about your mom." After everyone had finished their pancakes and eggs, and the adults were already on their second cup of coffee, Jim began by telling the children that their mother had been in a car accident and was in the hospital in a coma. After church, they would all go to the hospital, and each of them could take turns being with her. Tommy asked, "Dad, were you in the car? You don't look hurt at all." Jim replied that it was someone else's car, and the driver died in the accident, and their mother was simply lucky to be alive. Emma asked who the man was. Jim said he was a professional football player, and he and their mom were friends. He answered most of the children's and their grandparents' questions, but the main question was why. He had no answer. He noticed that Emma began to suspect something about this story. Jim asked everyone to pray while they were at church. At church, many people, both Jim's acquaintances and strangers, asked about the accident and how he was holding up. It was hard to talk, and even harder not to tell the whole truth. After the service, while shaking Pastor Ray's hand, Jim heard an invitation to come into the office for a conversation. His parents took the children to the community hall for refreshments to give him some time with the pastor. After the standard questions about Linda's condition and how the family was coping, the pastor got down to business and asked Jim to share as much as he felt was necessary. Deciding that the pastor had probably heard worse stories, Jim did not soften what had happened or his feelings about it. The pastor concluded by emphasizing the need for forgiveness, noting that it can take time. Jim thought, "Yeah, when hell freezes over," but kept it to himself. Emma and Tommy went with Jim to the hospital. His parents followed, and they joined Linda's parents in the waiting room. The hospital allowed family members to visit the intensive care unit, but only one adult at a time and for no more than 5 minutes. Jim escorted each of the children. On the way to the hospital, he tried to prepare them for what they would see, but they were still shocked when they saw their mother. The amputated leg was not visible, but Linda's head was bandaged and her right arm and good leg were in a cast. She remained in a coma. After the visit, they ate pie in the cafeteria, and then Tommy and Emma left with Jim's parents back to their home. Jim didn't forget to call the kids before bed. On Monday, Jim started a new life. At dawn every day he got up, warmed up and ran until his chest began to hurt. Then he walked home, took a shower, got dressed, ate something for breakfast, and went to the hospital. The children stayed with their grandparents for a few more days. At the hospital, day after day, the routine was repeated. Sit, wait, talk to the doctor or nurse, talk to Linda's parents, wait again, get a Coke or coffee from the machine and wait for updates. After the visits, Jim drove home to his parents and had dinner with the children. After a few days of this routine without news, the nurses allowed everyone to come in together, but not for long. Linda looked calm in her coma. On Tuesday, while sitting in the hospital chapel, Jim felt his phone vibrate. The screen showed the caller, Dave. Dave called several times on Friday night after Linda seduced him, and several times a day since then. Jim ignored all the calls, but decided to take the opportunity to at least a little take it out on one of his accomplices. He went out into the corridor and answered. "What do you want, Dave? I hope this is something important and quick. Speak, my ex-best friend." Dave replied, "Jim, it's not what you think, or at least not entirely. Please listen to me, I'm on your side, trust me. First of all, I'm truly sorry about all of this and about Linda's accident and everything that led up to it. If I had known then what I know now, I would have grabbed a bottle of wine and smashed it over Lavaliere's head or knocked out his knee. Dee deceived me and all of us, Jim. Linda didn't know anything in advance. But Dee had been urging Linda for a long time to, as she put it, stop being a 50s mom and unwind a little. Dee knew that Lavaliere would be in Morrison and that he liked to seduce married women right in front of their husbands. Dee convinced us all that it would just be a prank. She said that Lavaliere would come to our table and ask Linda to dance. They will dance a couple of times, come back to us, he will take a selfie with us and leave. And then we will do what everyone came to the hotel for. The only one who didn't know was you. Apparently, Dee knows Mark through her charity work. In fact, she knew him very well. After 2 hours of arguing, I told Dee that I would leave as soon as I packed my things unless she told me the whole truth. I told her that her scheming sent her best friend to the hospital and at the same time ruined my best friend's life. In the end, she admitted that she slept with Mark more than once. And the juiciest part, pardon the pun, is that Mark told her that his biggest turn-on was the public humiliation of his unsuspecting husband, whom he called a cuckold. He did this when he played for the Browns, Eagles, and Panthers. He boasted to see that his antics had caused at least 7 divorces in Cleveland, 5 in Charlotte, and several in Philadelphia. This is what gave him the greatest pleasure. He felt like the master of life and controlled both his wife and her entire family. When the girls started planning their date at the end of February, Dee decided it was the perfect time for Mark to take Linda away for an unforgettable night and humiliate you at the same time. Sorry, buddy, I thought it would be a harmless prank, a few dances and selfies. But Dee had other plans, and no offense to your wife, I think Linda was too flattered and stunned to realize what was going on. Even when Linda came out the back door, I still hoped that it was a joke and that she would be waiting for us at the hotel. But on the way back to Madison, Dee confirmed that Linda had indeed left to spend the night with Mark. I was furious. When the door to our room slammed shut, I attacked Dee with reproaches. I cursed her up and down, but she just repeated, "But this is Mark Lavalier," as if that changed anything. The more I scolded her, the more I realized from her smug grin that it was all over between us. Needless to say, we spent the night completely differently than I had planned. Phil and Jane also quarreled. Phil left the hotel, leaving Jane alone in the Madison. Since then, I haven't been able to reach him. I think it was a show of strength for Dee. She was Linda's best friend, but she was always jealous of her. Linda was too perfect. Perfect house, perfect children, perfect husband. If her plan had worked, Linda would have lost her pedestal, and you along with her. I'm on your side, Jim. I was told that it would be a harmless prank, nothing more. Jim asked, "What are you going to do next, Dave?" As the song says, RZVOD. The sooner the better. We don't have kids, and we rent a house, so it should be simple. My parents moved to Tampa. Maybe I'll try to transfer to the company office there. And you, Jim? On Saturday morning, I had a meeting with a friend who specializes in family law. We drew up divorce papers, and I was ready to serve them on Linda the first day she returned to work. You acted quickly. I was furious and in a real scorched earth mood, but now I have time to make decisions while Linda is recovering. Now I know that she is not faithful to me and would have left with this scoundrel on Saturday morning if he had only said a word. But for the sake of the children, I must wait until she recovers. I have one question, Dave. Do you think Linda was dating Lavalier before Friday night? It looks like they've never met before. I told Dee from the beginning that I didn't like her prank idea, but she sulked for a couple of days and I gave up. God, what a pity that I didn't listen to my inner voice. I'm so sorry, Jim. Truly sorry. I didn't know how it would all turn out. Me too. Thanks, Dave. Wednesday passed without any change in Linda's condition. In the afternoon, Jim's parents arrived along with Emma and Tommy. The children sat with Linda for a while, hoping that if they talked to her and told her how much they missed her, she would wake up. Jim took the kids home to pick up more clothes and things for a few days. He decided to find a nanny or caregiver so that the children could sleep in their own beds and be cared for while he was at work. Jim grinned, realizing that if Linda recovered and returned home, he would have to hire a nanny for her too. On Thursday, returning from school where he left the children, Jim headed to the hospital and encountered the devil himself, Dee. Dee came to the hospital every day, but Jim still managed to avoid her. Each time, she told Linda's parents how sorry she was that Linda was hurt and how much she felt for Jim, Emma, and Tommy. But she never expressed regret for the broken marriage. This time, she walked straight towards Jim as he headed to Linda's room. Jim took a deep breath and quickly started recording on his iPhone. So Dee, home wrecker and hit and run accomplice, What happened on Friday? What role did you play? And what was Linda really up to? Don't you dare lie. I can easily contact journalists and tell them about the conspiracy organized by a suburban housewife and a famous athlete, and how many lives they ruined. So give it your all, D. D looked down at the hospital linoleum and replied, "It just happened, Jim. Mark chose Linda at random and asked her to dance. After he got her completely turned on, he offered to leave with him, but she didn't know how to do that while you were there. Then I told her that this would be an experience not to be missed. I offered to cover her. It was a spontaneous decision." Bullshit. You planned all this in advance, it just doesn't happen. And I know this for sure. Then I'll ask the question differently. Did you know this bastard personally before Friday? She hesitated, but finally admitted, "Yes, I think I did." "Did you sleep with him?" "If you're talking about Mark, then yes. I don't even know where to start. Mark is a true stud with enormous size and incredible stamina, and there's almost nothing he won't try. I met him at a bachelorette party about 6 months ago. I drank a little, Mark came over, asked me to dance, and then we left together. I called Dave and said that we would stay until closing, and that I could not be expected until 3 in the morning. Mark did something to me that I had never felt before." Too much information. Please do not give me any more details about what Linda had that night. I mean, Mark is a true expert in the art of seduction. When he wants, he can limit himself to one night, but sometimes he plans 4 or 5 meetings. Usually that's all. A week later, Mark wanted to see me again. I made up an excuse for Dave and went to Mark. Everything was smooth and sensual, and after we smoked, the games began. Bondage, spanking, blindfolding, leaving marks. Nothing particularly rough, but I knew for sure that I was really fucked. On the 3rd date, there was a threesome. He brought a teammate. I was already in 7th heaven from sex, but during the break, Mark took out illegal substances. By the time it was over, I was tired, pumped up and happy. A week later, we met up with Mark and 6 of his teammates. I walked the circle, with each of them one-on-one, and then the threesome began, hard sex entertainment and a lot of illegal substances until dawn. I don't remember what excuse I came up with for Dave then. And so, on the 5th date, Mark invited me to dinner, or rather, ordered room service in a luxury suite on the top floor of the St. Kate Hotel, and then we spent several hours drinking champagne, sex, and illicit substances. Before dawn, he told me that this is the end. Nothing personal, just his rules. I knew it from the beginning, but now I really wanted to live like this forever. Great sex, good substances, and delicious food. I just wish I could lure him into something more permanent. I would leave Dave in an instant. Mark would only have to say it. Mark and I continued to communicate, and we occasionally ran into each other at charity events. One day, he asked me if I knew any MILF women he could meet. I immediately thought of Linda, although she and I had always condemned other women who cheated on their husbands. I thought she could use some spreading of her wings, and I knew she would like Mark as much as Mark liked her. Mark's biggest fad is to take wives away from their husbands, and the more public the humiliation, the better. I think you're wondering now, and the answer is no. Linda had never met Mark until Friday, and although I told her about my wild spree with an NFL player, she didn't know that Mark was the same man I was seeing on the side. Jane and Mary knew about this plan from the very beginning. They both wanted to try their luck with Mark, but were overall happy that he would choose someone from our group. Jane's biggest dream was to have sex with multiple partners and hadn't had one since her wedding to Phil. She cheated on Phil more than once, but he has no idea about it. I planned Friday with the sole purpose of getting Mark and Linda together. Linda didn't know that she would be a fly caught in Mark's web. I knew that Mark would ask her to go to him, and then everything depended on her, but at least I was giving her a chance for an incredible adventure. I was sure that she would enjoy sex with Mark. What woman wouldn't love it? Linda is much more reserved than I am, but I suggested to Mark that she might loosen up quicker if we offered her some illicit substances, and that would be her first experience. At 11 o'clock, I received a message from Linda in which she wrote that she had tried substances for the first time and that sex with Mark had exceeded all her expectations. I was looking forward to reliving my novel through Linda's stories in the coming months, but now none of that matters anymore. Jim couldn't help himself. So this whole one night only and Linda will come back and nothing will change story was complete nonsense, right? Well, if she decided not to agree to go on another date with Mark, then it really would have been just one night. It would be up to her, but I knew that if she enjoyed illicit substances as much as sex, she would come back for more. So it was kind of a free test drive for Linda, right? A way to taste what this bastard has to offer, but still give yourself the opportunity to come back to me. You can justify it as one night as much as you want and say that Linda will stay the same, but that's not the case, is it? It was never true. Friday wasn't some fairy tale story where a handsome prince chooses a poor girl and takes her to his castle, right? That wasn't the case, Dee. She didn't answer. No, you planned everything. You helped her escape. By helping that bastard and Linda humiliate me as much as possible, you were trying to earn yourself points so that he would invite you to tea at the castle again. And I'm just good old Plan B loyal, reliable, loving, stupid, naive Jim who will take Linda back like nothing happened. Well, girlfriend D, I got you, and so did Dave. For everyone, this story will end far from fairy tale. It shouldn't have turned out like this. It was just a little fun. Jim asked, "What will happen if Dave finds out?" Jim knew Dave already knew everything, but he wanted to hear Dee's reaction. "Dave loves me. He has a wonderful life with my body, which he gets regularly, and if he finds out, he'll just have to deal with the fact that sometimes I share." Good luck with that. I don't think Dave's going to think your ass is all that special when he finds out that half an NFL team and a good chunk of Great Lakes Naval Station went through it. Jim laughed. You won't tell him. Oh, I'll tell you how. In 50 or 60 years, when I'm on my deathbed, maybe I'll forgive Linda. I said, maybe. But I will never forgive you and what you did to her, to me, to Tommy and Emma. Lord, you stupid girl of easy virtue. No matter how I feel about her now, Linda would not have left me on Friday and would not now be in a coma, fighting for her life, if it weren't for you. Don't come to the hospital anymore. If major changes happen to Linda, one way or another, I will let you know, but that's where my generosity ends. That bastard got what he deserved, he's dead. Are you happy with your plan, D? I won't judge if Linda deserved what happened to her, but at least she doesn't sit at home waving at me with her best sex ever, every minute. I'm a grown man, I'm sad as hell right now, more depressed than you can imagine, and incredibly angry at the way things turned out, but I'm going to get through it. For Tommy and Emma, it will never be the same again. They have lost their family as they knew it, because there will be nothing between their mom and dad. In the worst case, they can lose their mother altogether. Thank you, friend. D, I don't know how or when, but you will get what you deserve. You can be sure. And while you're at it, go to hell, bitch. She lowered her eyes to the floor again. Jim heard her son, and then she turned and walked away. Before leaving, Jim looked at the nurse's station and learned that Linda's toxicology test showed the presence of illegal substances in her body, but there were no signs of drugs used for sex on dates. He almost hoped that they would find evidence of such a substance. Damn, the bitch was just having the time of her life. At least this bastard could afford a good product, I guess. Friday passed quietly. Jim couldn't get used to the fact that a whole week had passed. Linda's condition has not changed. Her parents spent most of the day in the hospital. With Emma and Tommy at home over the weekend, Jim tried to bring some normalcy into their lives. After they visited Linda, Jim took the kids to their favorite diner, Chick-fil-A. Monday turned out to be just a repeat of the previous week. No change in Linda's condition overnight, the same wallpaper on the walls, the same constant sounds of the monitors, the same sympathetic looks from the nurses, the same disgusting coffee in the cafeteria, and no real news from the doctor. Jim returned home to do some housework and then went back to the hospital. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday went the same way. Early Friday morning, Jim woke up after a night full of bad dreams. While drinking coffee, he remembered what he and Linda were doing this morning just 2 weeks ago. They were so happy, or seemed to be happy, getting ready for the big night. But today, everything will just be a repeat of the last few days. Take the kids to school, have a quick breakfast, go to the hospital, wait for news that never comes, pick up the kids, take them to their grandparents, then go to the hospital again. But around 8:30 in the evening, Linda began to move her arms a little. For the next hour she stirred, tried to roll over, but then gave up and went back to sleep. After about an hour and a half, she began to move again and then opened her eyes. "Mark, where are you, Mark?" Her first words hit Jim hard. "No, this is Jim, have you forgotten? I'm your husband, the father of your 2 children, Emma and Tommy. We've been married for 14 years, in case you weren't counting. There's no one named Mark here. True, a healthy football player nicknamed Bastard was brought here last Saturday, but if you are looking for him, look into the morgue, or better yet, straight into hell." "What? What happened to him?" "He's dead." "What? This can't be true. He just—" "Linda, he's MYRTV. No. And not that I care, but you killed him." "How is this possible?" "Well, you didn't shoot him, but you were directly responsible for his death. Although it's his fault too. To you, it must feel like only 10 minutes have passed, but you were in a coma for 2 weeks. Do you remember anything from that Friday night until Saturday afternoon?" "Everything is a little foggy. I remember dressing up in my blue dress for Valentine's Day. You and I went to the hotel, met with friends, had dinner, and went to the club. When Dave asked you to dance, remember what you said, that all my dances are for Jim. Are you serious?" "Of course, seriously. What do you mean?" "Well, after 15 minutes, you didn't think so anymore." "I meant it, but—" She trailed off and began to look tired. "Have you ever met Mark Lavalier before that Friday? Did Dee ever tell you about him? Did she mention that she had an affair with him? Did you tell me any details about what he is like?" "No, I didn't know much about him, only that he played for the Sharks." Dee only mentioned that she had a brief affair with an NFL football player. She said it was the best sex of her life. Damn, Linda. At that moment, the nurse who was monitoring Linda's blood pressure quickly entered the room and escorted Jim out. This conversation had to be postponed. If she had checked Jim's blood pressure, he probably would have been sent straight to the emergency room. The nurse gave Linda something to calm her down, and Jim went home for the night. The next day, Jim called Emma and Tommy's schools to report that Linda had regained consciousness and arranged for the children to skip school to visit their mother. Linda was happy to see them, but most of the time she couldn't stop crying. Jim couldn't tell if they were tears of joy or anxiety. When he noticed that Linda was tired, he said it was time to say goodbye. On the way to visit his grandparents, Jim took the children to the park to play for an hour and a half. He returned to the hospital in the evening during visiting hours. Linda was sleeping peacefully, and he didn't want to wake her, so he went to the cafeteria for a cup of coffee and a serving of hospital tapioca pudding. Returning to Linda's room half an hour later, he found that she had woken up. "Oh, Jim, thanks for coming back. I wasn't sure you'd come here again. I'm so sorry you have to be so torn. That's what husbands do, you know, in sickness and in health. This is one of the vows, in case you forgot. It seems like you haven't been very clear about being faithful lately. We're making progress, I guess. You're sorry that I have to travel so much. But will you ever regret dancing with another man on our special night and then running off with him for the rest of the night, leaving me humiliated, alone, sad, and I admit, scared to death, worried about you? Are you sorry for how this all turned out for us all? Don't answer these questions, Linda, but think about them. You must give me an answer in the coming days. Let me play you a recording of my conversation with Dee on Sunday when she came to visit you and I accidentally ran into her." Jim started recording on his phone. "Oh no. One more time, Linda. This is your last chance. Lie to me again, even if it's a small, insignificant lie, and I'll walk out the door and you'll be left alone. With this post and the video that the bastard sent me on Friday night, You will never get custody of Emma and Tommy if you and I break up. So take a deep breath, drink some water, and consider your options. Remember what your husband does for a living. I know a lot more about what happened in the last 2 weeks than you do. Imagine yourself in the witness box under oath. Time for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Was this all just a setup? Like I said, I first met Mark on Friday night, but Dee told me she had an affair with an NFL player. She talked about what he did to her and how he made her feel. She never said that this football player was Lavalier. You have to believe me. Did she tell you about drugs and sex? What drugs? Linda paused for a moment to think. Yes, she did. It just sounded so exciting. So there was no plan before we went to Morrison? No, at least not from my side. Everything happened spontaneously. I can't explain everything. When Mark came to our table and asked me to dance, I was going to give him the same answer that I gave Dave. But at that moment Dee caught my eye and I could read her lips. She said, "That's him." The blood rushed to my head and I felt powerless to say no. Didn't you realize that agreeing to just one dance with him would ruin our entire evening, our special evening? I didn't look at it from that point of view. At that time, it was just a dance. If you were angry, I would smooth things over. Even when Dee helped me leave, I knew I could convince you that this was a unique opportunity for me. Yes, I understood that you might be angry, but I saw it as something that you would easily get through, maybe even be happy for me, and we could go back to the way it was before, the way it always was. You're wrong, honey. As for returning to the previous relationship, there is no hope. You've done one thing, and now it's the end. Having said that, I'm not an insensitive bastard. I will help you recover enough to leave the hospital and return home. You can take the master bedroom, it's on the first floor, and there's more space for you and your wheelchair or whatever else you need. In addition, there is a private bathroom. I slept there, but it was absolutely unbearable for me. I associate this bedroom with many things that are now dead. I'll be sleeping in the guest room when you get back. I know you'll need a lot of rehab, physical therapy, and the like, and I'll take you where and when you need it. I will hire any help needed. I hope you can return to teaching in time. Thank you for not divorcing me. I didn't promise that, did I? We will return to this issue when you have recovered enough to become independent again. I'm not cold enough to serve you divorce papers in a hospital, but believe me, I've thought about it. You can go home when you're discharged. I intend to remain legally married, but it will be something like together, but apart. It is still better for children to grow up with both parents. Perhaps we will reconcile, perhaps we will divorce. I will decide what will be better. All this is in the future. It just hurts that none of us will be able to enjoy the life we were hoping for because of your idiotic, once-in-a-lifetime thing. Once in a lifetime, ha! It's more like the rest of my life. Can we talk about this later? I don't want you to make decisions in anger. I love you, Jim, and I don't want a divorce. Do you remember how that bastard took a video of your unforgettable night? Not really. Well, he took it off and he sent it to me. In my entire life. In school, in the army, and in a very brutal career, no one gave me the middle finger like you and your bastard lover did. Can you imagine what it's like to watch the person you love more than life itself have sex with someone else? Having sex with him in a way you never allowed me to? With marks on my chest that I didn't leave? With your face and the rings on your left hand stained? Welcome to my night to remember, or as you call it, adventure. Here, look at this and tell me if I'm going too far. Jim showed her about 4 minutes, including a moment where she looked into the camera and said, "Hey, Jim, I'm having a great time. Mark is such a great size, I just want more and more of it. See you tomorrow," followed by a scene where they have a special kind of sex with her, accompanied by sounds of pleasure and her screams. Certainly, here's a more subtle version of the text. You will probably like this moment. You are trying something forbidden. Oh my God, there are marks all over your face and chest. Do you think I'll forget this image? Do you think this is just a small bump in the road? I shouldn't let you anywhere near our children ever again. You never did anything special for me, even when I asked, but you went to great lengths for him. Do you begin to understand what I felt, what I still feel? What about the taxi I ordered? Do you remember that, or were you too beside yourself? Yes, I remember. I was getting dressed to leave, but Mark woke up and wanted me to stay, and then he suggested something else, and I returned to him. I must have fallen asleep after that. After he dragged you along again? She lowered her eyes, unable to answer the question. You should have gotten in the damn taxi. We would still be talking now, but it would be a conversation in our kitchen and not in this hospital room. Let's fast forward to Saturday afternoon. Do you remember anything? I remember getting into Mark's Lamborghini. It's the coolest car I've ever been in, and he was going to take me home. It was already 4:30, so he was driving pretty fast. I bent down to unbutton his pants, and then I woke up here. What happened, and what happened to Mark? You seem to care a lot about this bastard. She lowered her eyes again in embarrassment. Jim smiled for the first time during the conversation. The bastard was dead on the spot. Now he rests in peace. He did not notice the red light, apparently was distracted, and flew at speeds of 85 to 90 miles per hour, ramming a dark green Kia Soul driven by Marge Walker. Mrs. Walker's 3-year-old daughter, Brittany, was buckled into her booster seat. Oh, did I tell you that Mrs. Walker was 7 months pregnant with her second child, a boy? Her car exploded on impact, killing everyone inside in the fire. They burned alive. You burned them alive, you fucking bitch. Oh my God. Linda covered her face with her hands in horror, trying to comprehend what she had heard. They say the bastard died instantly. I hope not completely instantly. I hope he had at least a couple of minutes to realize what was happening. And you were trapped in his stupid toy car for over an hour before the firefighters were able to get you out. Your left leg was completely disfigured. She could not be saved. Deputy Chief Harding personally came to the studio to tell me about this, although I already knew because the news began to spread right during the broadcast. Harding said that if their investigators determine that you prevented the bastard from driving properly, do you think they won't? You could be charged with 4 counts of manslaughter. Just think about the ironic twist. Even if I divorce you, the cheater, I could lose everything because you were going to please this guy in his car at almost 150 kilometers per h. How lucky I am to marry you. Teacher of the year, then an addict, then a sex queen, and now a killer, all in less than 24 hours, a ready-made script for a Lifetime movie. I've always wanted to try my hand at screenwriting. Maybe this is my chance. Linda refused to talk further and simply cried. So confident in herself when she woke up, she could no longer look Jim in the eyes. Where are we, Linda? We can't bring your leg back, and we can't rewind your life so that you and I have wonderful memories of our evening in a suite at the Madison Hotel. No matter what you do, you can't undo what happened to the bastard. I can't stay in this hospital anymore. And frankly, with you too. But I will do what you would not be capable of. Even if your life depended on it, I will remain faithful and devoted. I will come to you every day while you are here. I will be your advocate and make sure you have the best medical care. If I have to fight with doctors or the insurance company, I will do it. I will help you recover at least to some extent. You know, I thought we at least agreed on Friday that you would take a taxi home. It could have saved your marriage, and it would definitely have saved 4 lives and your leg. You understand. 4 lives were lost because of your selfishness. You could have saved the life you had, the one I always thought you treasured as much as I did. Instead, you spat on me, spat on a taxi, probably pleased the bastard, ran a red light, and now you're here. I tried. The only thing I could have done differently to stop this nightmare was to go to the bastard's house and put a bullet in his forehead. But I wouldn't just stop there, if you know what I mean. I'm so sorry, Jim. Is it a pity that you really did it, or is it just a pity how things turned out? I'm sorry, so sorry, that you're hurt. You'll have to try harder. I can't help you until you take responsibility for everything you did that Friday and Saturday. You must repent, truly repent for what you did. You should tell this to our children, just like you did to me. And at some point, you'll have to tell Nick Walker that. Who is Nick Walker? This is the 28-year-old man you and the bastard made a widower on Saturday. Of course, it was great to drive a Lamborghini, right? Linda was sobbing, but could not answer. Jim raised his voice. Best car you've ever been in, huh? You're sorry I hurt you, but you can't say you're sorry for what you did to me on Friday night. Can you at least say you're sorry for what you did to Nick Walker? You changed his life much more than mine. Oh God, no. Yeah, you and Dee came up with a great plan, but sometimes the best plan goes awry. You're such a fool. Dee was just using you to set up the bastard, not for your pleasure, but to get her share again. Maybe by the fourth date, you would be so hooked on illegal substances that you would be ready to serve an entire football team. This is what it was all leading to. Of course, you didn't see the full picture, but Dee and the bastard did. I saw you drowning and threw you a big yellow life preserver, but you didn't want to grab it. And that's where you are now. I thought I made it clear that if you came home right away, we could at least start a conversation and maybe fix things. But while I was trying to figure out how to save this marriage, this family, you decided you needed a few more hits and a few more treats, and here we are. I can't talk about it anymore. I'm dead tired and going home. Tomorrow I will come, and you know that I always keep my promises. Jim told her one more thing. I loved you once, Linda. Always remember this. But I don't think love is enough this time. He turned away so as not to see her, but heard a quiet sobbing. I love you, Jim. He left the room and walked along the long hospital corridor. On the way out, he asked the nurse to check on Linda because she seemed upset and might need something to help her sleep. Sleep would be better than thinking about something she couldn't fix. Nobody can fix it. And then Jim thought, why does he even care about this? Once in the car, he turned on the ignition and the radio started playing again. Still tuned to the retro hit station. It must have been love. But it's over now. Suddenly Jim could not go any further. Between the conversation with Linda and that sentimental song, he felt like a concrete wall was closing in on him. He thought, that Friday night, I wanted Linda and the bastard to die horribly. But the reality of this accident is a strange thing. If the accident had not happened, and she had returned home on Saturday as planned, still glowing from her adventures, I would have divorced her, and quickly. Now it's not so simple. I hated her that night and Saturday morning. The accident took away most of this hatred from me. Now I feel sorry for her, and I keep putting myself in her shoes. What if I found myself in a hospital room without a leg and my world changed in an instant? But she never put herself in my place. She never thought about how I would feel when she left me. How can someone who says he loves you do such a thing? But I won't leave her. It's not in my nature. Will I be able to love her again? Most likely not, and certainly not the way I loved you before. Why the hell do I even care? The next day, Jim went to his parents. They could have breakfast together, and then he would take Tommy and Emma to the hospital to see their mother. After they cleared the table, Jim's father said he wanted to show him something in the garage. Jim realized that he just wanted to talk. I can't imagine how you feel now, the father began, but if I were in your place, it would be very difficult. After all, it's not just about you two, there are 4 more. Almost 15 years of marriage against one night, but what a night it was. Can one night outweigh these 14-plus years? Or are 14-plus good years and 2 wonderful children still more important than 18 hours of pure hell? She can deny a lot, but she can never deny that she changed everything in your life. As always, you understand everything correctly, Dad. I made a decision. I'll take her home, give her the best care, help her recover to some level, maybe even get her back into teaching. I think it will take a year, maybe more, and then I will draw my conclusions. By then, the kids will be closer to college. I've had enough of the changes lately, no need to add new ones right now. When Jim returned to the hospital with Tommy and Emma, Linda was asleep, but gradually woke up and sat up as soon as she noticed the children. She was happy to see them, and they were happy to be with their mother. They had a lot to talk about, but now at least they were with their mother again, and that made them happy. Jim was glad that the children were happy. Linda brought up the topic of the canceled Hawaiian vacation, and asked if they could ever make the trip. Jim's first thought was to say that he had already rebooked the trip and they would fly out in the morning when hell freezes over, but he quickly calmed down. Not this summer, but when you get better, we'll see. Jim thought. Gathering the strength to bring up this topic must have taken a lot of effort for her. She looks tired. When they said goodbye, Jim leaned toward Linda. I promise I'll be back tomorrow, and I keep my promises. A tear rolled down her cheek. The next few days were routine. Jim had to spend his days, and especially his nights, alone with his thoughts, which fluctuated between hope and despair, as well as anxiety about the future. On Saturday, Emma and Tommy wanted to spend as much time as possible with their mother. The children picked a bouquet of daffodils from Linda's garden and made a large homemade get-well card. Linda cried when they gave them to her. It was one of those little pleasant days that you remember all your life. When Jim saw that Linda was tired again, they said goodbye. Jim hugged Linda, and she weakly hugged him back. See you tomorrow, honey, he said. Jim realized that this was the first kind word he had uttered since this whole nightmare began. After church on Sunday, Jim, the children, and Linda's parents spent most of the afternoon and evening at the hospital. Linda was with them part of the time, but slept most of the day. Monday and Tuesday went the same way. Around 3:30 a.m. Wednesday, Jim's phone rang. Getting a call in the middle of the night is never a good thing. Mr. Carlson, this is Nancy Osborne, a nurse at Lutheran Memorial Hospital. Sorry to call at this hour, but your wife's condition is rapidly deteriorating. How bad is it? She only has a few hours left, maybe even less. I'll be there as soon as possible. After hanging up, Jim couldn't help but think, God, what else are you going to throw at me? He was glad that the children were spending the night with him and quickly woke them up, deciding that if everything went according to the worst scenario, they would have the opportunity to say goodbye. Everyone quickly got dressed, and while the children brushed their teeth, Jim called Linda's parents and then his own. Without breaking any serious laws, Jim rushed to the hospital in record time. They ran to the nurse's station and found Nurse Osborne. She reported that Linda had suffered a massive heart attack. Doctors brought her back to life, but her organs began to fail. Jim, Emma, and Tommy held Linda's hands and were soon joined by Linda's parents. This time, the nurses weren't strict with the rules. More family was the only medicine that could help in any way. Jim's parents came in too, kissed Linda on the forehead or cheek, and then went to the waiting room. They spent the next 3.5 hours talking to Linda, praying for her, forgiving her. All the anger that Jim had been storing up within himself disappeared, giving way to pity, sadness, nagging questions, and what if? The children and both sets of parents cried until Linda's vital signs plummeted and she left. The nurse turned off the monitors, and that damn beeping stopped forever. How long does it take for life to go from happy and loving to pure despair? In Jim's case, a little over 2 weeks. That's all it took. My sweet, wonderful Linda. Almost 15 years of marriage, 17 together in total. 17 magical years, then one terrible night followed by 2 weeks of hell. How can you balance it out? The family sat with Linda and said goodbye to her, some out loud, some silently. Emma and Tommy cried and said that they already missed their mother. Emma tried to be strong for her little brother. After about an hour, Jim stood up. He kissed Linda one last time and told her that he loved her, forgave her, and was truly sorry for her. He whispered in her ear, "Good night, sweetheart," as he had done every night since they had been together, right up until that Friday. Before Jim left the hospital for the last time, he made several calls. He called some of his and Linda's friends and said that he would announce the plans later. It was too early to make decisions. He contacted his boss and said that Linda had died, promising to keep him informed. He also called the principal of the school where Linda worked. She said that in a few weeks a memorial ceremony would be held at the school. He had one more call left. Dee. She answered on the third ring. Dee, Linda is no more. For the rest of your pathetic life, think about what you did to her, to me, to all of us. Before she could answer, he hung up. She called back 20 times, but Jim sent all the calls to voicemail. By then, it was almost 10 a.m., and everyone was exhausted, but not enough to go back to bed. Instead, they went to breakfast. Jim, Emma, Tommy, and both pairs of parents. Surprisingly, the moment was not doomed and dull. Pretty soon, the table began to remember good times, funny stories, and what Linda meant to each of them. When it was time to leave, Jim asked Linda's parents to accompany him to the morgue the next day. Jim and Linda never really discussed their last wishes, not expecting this day to come so soon. In the end, Jim and Linda's parents decided to have cremation. Jim did not want to bury his wife in the crippled state in which she left this world. It is better to free her from all suffering. Jim and the children returned to an empty and very quiet house in the afternoon. There were dozens of messages on the answering machine that needed to be listened to and returned. The kids went to take a nap and Jim collapsed into his favorite chair. Now he was glad that he had restrained himself and not trashed the house the night he returned from Madison. Despite all the sadness, the things that Linda had lovingly placed in the house over the years brought strange comfort. Jim's parents came in the evening, and they talked until midnight. Jim was glad of their company, but when they left, the loneliness began to weigh on him unbearably. Jim thought, "It's funny, if Linda had lived and that accident had never happened, I would have hated her and might never have been able to forgive her. We would probably have started a messy divorce. Even if some marriage therapist would wave her magic wand and we'd get back together, I'd still be afraid that every time I made love to her, she'd be imagining him and not me. If she tried something new in bed, I wouldn't know where it came from a magazine Cosmo or from a bastard. If she were alive, but with that bastard instead of me, I would be constantly seething with rage, trying to keep her under control, a disgusting way to live. But in the end, Linda probably saved me." The next few weeks were a busy one. A small ceremony was held at home for family and a few close friends. The only one who was with them that night at Morrison's who was invited was Dave. Linda loved her little backyard garden so much that Jim, Emma, and Tommy decided to scatter her ashes there. This way she will always be in the place she liked. Instead of a monument, they installed 2 small solari bells, which will ring gently every time the breeze blows. Linda's school held a memorial ceremony on the last day before spring break. Several hundred parents, fellow teachers, past and present students, and many others who knew Linda came to pay their respects. When all this was over, the Carlson house became very quiet. There was no public ceremony for Mark Lavaliere. While he was alive, he imagined that if he died at the height of his glory, the entire city would mourn him. He thought that his jersey would be taken out of circulation forever, a monument would be erected at the stadium, and Sports Illustrated would issue a memorial issue, like Kobe Bryant. This didn't happen. A high-speed crash that killed an innocent mother and child erased Lavaliere's name from the official history of the NFL's Sharks. It was difficult to continue living. Every morning Jim got up, prepared breakfast for the children, helped them with their chores, and drove them to school. Emma tried to be strong, but Jim saw how hard it was for her. Tommy just kept to himself, but Jim tried to talk to him every day, reminding him that he was always there. Time passed, and small steps forward were not easy. Jim returned to work and devoted himself completely to it. He worked overtime on several investigations in addition to his regular newscasts, but he was lonely at home. Any anger Jim felt about Linda gradually turned into sadness. The children helped cope. Jim admitted that they were the ones who saved him. As they grew older, they began to appreciate that their father was there for their games, school plays, camping trips, and rare family weekends. Since Jim returned home long after dinner on weekdays, he hired a nanny and a tutor for Emma and Tom. Heidi was blonde, beautiful, and 20 years old. She was born in Heidelberg, Germany, and moved to the United States with her parents when she was just 2 years old. She had a radiant personality, a slight German accent, and a charming smile. The children were delighted with her. Jim too, but he told himself that his sympathy was purely paternal. However, Heidi soon became an important part of their family. Jim felt lonely in the house, and while he couldn't stay mad at Linda anymore, He couldn't stand anything about the Sharks, especially as Cole's teammates who had stopped him from saving Linda that night. He believed the team's culture was partly to blame for what happened. Having recovered from the shock, Jim began to implement his plan for the future. He couldn't get to Ascol, but he could get to his property and collect the debt from the crew. Jim instructed Dan to file claims on behalf of himself and Nick Walker against Lavaliere's estate in connection with the accident. Jim paid all of the Walker family's legal fees and expenses out of his own pocket. Jim became a friend of sorts to Nick and decided not to sue Linda's inheritance. The process was long and fraught with bureaucratic obstacles, but in the end, the administrator of Lavaliere's estate agreed to 8-figure payments for both families. Each of Lavaliere's cronies paid $500,000 as part of the settlement. The Sharks' owners resisted the most. Jim claimed that the team turned a blind eye to violations of the moral standards specified in the contracts. However, public opinion began to change, and they eventually settled without litigation. Series of articles in Journal Sentinel about the adventures of Lavaliere convinced the team owners to reconsider their positions. Jim started getting calls from other husbands whose marriages had broken down because of Lavaliere. Men from Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Charlotte, Cleveland, and almost every city where Lavaliere played road games shared their stories. Most couples divorced soon after Lavaliere attracted their wives. Some tried to save their marriages, but ultimately failed. Most women, attached to fame, illegal substances, and parties, no longer found satisfaction in relationships with faithful and hard-working husbands. 3 husbands and 2 wives committed suicide, and in one case there was a murder followed by suicide. All this was carefully hushed up by the teams, the league, and the sports media. Dan and other lawyers obtained significant compensation for all victims. Jim often said that he would give all this money just to turn back time. The husbands who were at Morrison's house on February 29th have all divorced. Dee and Dave were the first to end their marriage, but later each man hired private detectives and all their wives were caught cheating. A year later, Dee died of an overdose along with her boyfriend, a promising basketball player from the University of Michigan. They accidentally took illegal substances in a cheap motel. Dave didn't come to her funeral. He moved to Tampa, where he met a wonderful woman who dreamed of a family and hated professional football. The last time Dave and Jim spoke on the phone, Dave said, "Dee's tombstone should say, 'So what? It was just one night.'" One day, Emma suggested moving. "All our best friends moved away because their parents got divorced, and a lot of the kids and adults here treat us weird because of Mom. The boys on the football team always pester me. Everyone thinks that since my mother fell under the athlete, then I am the same. And I'm afraid of what you'll do to any of them if you find out what they're saying about me." One Saturday afternoon, Jim was walking around the mall looking for a birthday present for Emma. Linda usually did this, and Jim had a hard time imagining what Emma would want, but he heard a familiar voice. "Hello, Mr. Jim." It was Heidi, the only one who called him that, along with an older woman, but equally beautiful and clearly of German heritage. "Heidi, I just thought I needed help choosing a gift for Emma, and here you are. I won't take up much of your time. I see you're with your friend," Jim said. "Mr. Jim, I'm always happy to help, especially when it comes to Emma. And this is not a friend, this is my mother. Mom, this is Mr. Jim, or rather Jim Carlson. Mr. Jim, let me introduce you to my second hero in life, my mother, Annalisa Brockmuller. She watches your news every evening." "Very nice to meet you, Annalisa. Oh, can I just be Annalisa?" "Sure, if I can call you Jim." Annalise thought, "I really want to call him Shatsy." Now I understand why Heidi is so happy to work in the Carlson house. This man is simply incredibly attractive. "Do you have time for coffee? There's a Starbucks here in the mall," Jim suggested. An hour and a half later, Jim learned that Annalise was 39 years old and also a widow. Her late husband, Kurt, was 15 years older and died in a light plane crash just 4 years after their wedding. Since then, Annalisa has taken on the role of a single mother. She worked as a human resources manager in the regional office of the Aldi chain, where her German was still useful. Jim knew only a little German, But he remembered something from his time serving near Heidelberg, which, as it turned out, was Annelise's hometown. Moreover, her father retired as a brewer at the old Schloskwell brewery in Heidelberg. They spent the next hour discussing memories of the city. During the conversation, Jim came to an interesting conclusion. When he first met Linda, it was more of a love-at-first-sight thing. They quickly found a common language, but it took time for feelings to develop into love. When they started dating, Jim often worried that he loved Linda more than she loved him. It always seemed to him that she simply chose him for practical reasons. After she ran away with Askell, all those doubts were answered, and it was painfully clear. With Annalise, it was completely different. Jim could tell by the way she looked at him when he spoke, the way she leaned closer to him, and the atmosphere he felt around her. He hoped he was reading her signals correctly because he was already starting to fall in love with her. He took the plunge and invited her to dinner the next night, and she replied, "I'd love to." Jim asked where she would like to go. "Do you like Mader's?" she asked. Mader's is an old German restaurant in the city center, and they both loved its Teutonic-style atmosphere. Annalise ordered a glass of Riesling, and Jim, although he preferred an IPA, chose Schlitz in honor of his father, who worked at the brewery for many years. That first dinner turned into a second, then a third. Each of these evenings ended with a kiss, which became more and more passionate. On the fourth date, when Jim walked Annalise to her door, she said, "Would you like to come over for coffee? I have something I'd like to show you." Jim settled down on the living room couch, waiting for her to return. She came in wearing the same fur coat that she had been wearing that evening, but quickly threw it off, revealing her body. She was wearing only black thigh-high stockings, stiletto heels, and freshly waxed leather. "That's what I wanted to show you," she said. For the first time in his life, Jim was speechless, but quickly took her in his arms and asked only one question. "Where is your bedroom?" Thus began his night of golden memories, which had finally arrived. It was in the summer, 15 months after the events at Morrison's house, and after all the cases had been settled. Jim's news program was top of his time slot, and he had just won a local Emmy for an investigative series on how sports teams, professional and collegiate, turn a blind eye to the misbehavior of their athletes. With these cases settled, Jim no longer needed to work, but he loved his profession and did not want to give it up. But like his children, he was ready to move on. His career, his children, and now Annalise filled his time and thoughts, pushing away the memories of Linda. He used to love coming home every evening, but now every corner of the house reminded him of Linda. Mostly, these were good memories, how he carried Linda over the threshold, how they remodeled a small bedroom into a nursery, ordered seeds from a catalog, and then planted a garden together. The 4th of July, family barbecues, and decorating the Christmas tree were the only times a year that Linda allowed Jim to play his favorite Mannheim Steamroller CDs. But even good memories can bring sadness, and Jim is tired of this sadness. Jim and Annalise discuss moving in together, but Jim had a bigger idea. A few weeks before the end of the school year, he told Emma and Tim that they had an important task. Both rolled their eyes and began to make excuses and complain. "This will be fun. All three of us have been talking about moving out of this house. There are a lot of good memories here, but there are also sad ones, so maybe it's time for a change. Your task is to make a list of places where you would like to live, minimum of 5 points from each, but more is possible, and explain the reasons, for example, the beach or the mountains. But remember, if we choose Orlando, we will not go to Disneyland every week, or a rural area any place. I don't have to work anymore if I don't want to, so work isn't a big factor. Unless you're thinking about what you'll do after college, the only rule is the place must be at least 250 miles away. You have 2 weeks, and then we'll compare our lists and plan our trip." 2 weeks later, they sat down and discussed their lists. They all had options in Florida and California. Tim wanted to visit Nashville. He loves country music. Emma brought New York, and not for living, but just for fun. Jim added strange but interesting options such as Taos, New Mexico, Sandpoint, Idaho, and Mendocino, California. Together, they came up with a list of places that suited everyone. The children didn't know that Analyze also made suggestions. Jim began planning flights, hotels, car rentals, and Amtrak train tickets. Emma and Tim had never taken long-distance overnight trains, so Jim planned this for the most scenic sections of the journey. First, they flew to Los Angeles. Jim didn't want to return to the area where he grew up, but he wanted to show his kids his hometown. They visited all the major attractions except Universal Studios. Instead, Jim arranged with his friend for a private tour of Paramount Studios. They visited the U.S. campus, went to a Dodgers game, drove past Jim's childhood home in the San Fernando Valley, and frequented In-N-Out Burger. Jim showed them his favorite places like Philippe's near Union Station, Tommy's on Rampart, and the original 50s Bob's Big Boy in Toluca Lake. The kids got some tan and spent time at Newport Beach, and also took a day trip to San Diego. When Los Angeles had nothing new to offer, they boarded the Amtrak Coast Starlight train and traveled along the California coast, taking in views that can only be seen from the train. They got off in Salinas, rented a car, and spent a couple of days in Monterey before heading to San Francisco. On the first day, they planned to visit Chinatown, but Jim said, "First, we need to quickly go to SFO Airport to pick up an urgent package." After time. "Why are we just waiting at the Delta Airlines counter, Dad?" Emma asked. "You'll see now." At that moment, they saw Annalise and Heidi enter the baggage claim area, and the children screamed with delight. Annalise smiled. "We thought we'd tag along to make sure you don't get into trouble." The cable cars, Ghirardelli Square, Fisherman's Wharf, and the boat ride on the bay were very exciting, but there was much more to see. Jim wanted to show his new family more of California, so they headed further north. Jim's grandfather once worked for a small railroad that was still operating as a tourist attraction. The children saw a steam locomotive in action for the first time and took a ride on it among the redwood trees. In the following days, they explored the famous tree that you can drive through, visited the secret of the trees, Sea Lion Caves, and visited all the redwood gift shops they found along Highway 101. Over the course of the rest of the trip, the five travelers grew closer and began to become a real family. Seattle has always been one of Jim's favorite places. He and Linda had been there several times, but like San Francisco, the atmosphere was not the same. They climbed the Space Needle, visited museums nearby, ate a lot of salmon, and Jim enjoyed a Rainier beer. Their route zigzagged across the west, visiting Idaho, then descending into Phoenix, Scottsdale and Tucson, Albuquerque, San Antonio, Fort Worth, and Dallas. Next was a flight to Nashville, after which they stopped in Lexington, Kentucky. Then we went to Florida. Orlando was a must on the itinerary, and again they visited all the Disney parks, with a quick trip to Cape Canaveral, and then headed to the west coast of Florida. Jim had always thought that Naples might be a pleasant place. Over dinner, watching the sunset at Marco Island Resort, Jim told everyone, "I hope you understand by now that Heidi and Annalise will vote on where we will live, and to ensure that they always have an equal say." Jim took a small box from his jacket pocket and then knelt down on one knee in front of Annalise. "My dear, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." "I love you, my dear," she replied. Everyone started hugging and kissing each other. For the first time in the last 2 years, Jim felt unconditional happiness and looked forward to a new life in all its manifestations. They flew to Washington to visit all the sites. One morning, Jim sneaked out for breakfast to discuss business with an old friend who now worked at Fox. He organized a special tour of the White House for them. They then boarded an Amtrak train to Philadelphia. The children were surprised by the number of attractions in this city. Everyone else ran up the steps outside the art museum, while Annalise and Jim walked up calmly. Jim told Annalise, "I was thinking, although we have friends in Milwaukee, or rather, you have friends if you think it's a good idea, I'd like to get married where we live. Sounds like it would be a good way to start over." She hugged him and kissed him so passionately that it seemed as if her tongue had penetrated all the way to his throat. "Does this answer your question?" she said. Jim held Emma's hand as he walked downstairs. She looked at him and said, "It was a fantastic vacation, Dad. I don't even know which place to choose for my favorites. Tommy and I decided it would be good for us to live wherever you want. But I can't stop thinking. Whenever we see or do something cool, I keep thinking, I can't wait to tell my mom about this." Jim found himself thinking, "I thought so too, especially when we visited places where I have already been with your mother. It seems that she will remain with us for a long time." But Emma snapped him out of his melancholy, saying, "I'm so glad Annalise will be living with us. Do you think it will be okay to call her Mom?" This question turned out to be the most wonderful question Jim had heard in a long time. There will never be stories of evil stepmothers in this family. You'll have to ask her about it, but I think she'll be delighted. After a few days in New York, it was time to return to Milwaukee. At a family meeting, they significantly narrowed down the list of cities to move to. Jim didn't have to work and wanted to spend as much time as possible with his family, especially his future wife. However, broadcasting was in his blood, and he hoped to find a job to keep him in the game. Less than a week later, he received a call from a friend at Fox with an offer that seemed ideal: a part-time job as political editor at the local Phoenix affiliate. Jim was scheduled to host an hour-long interview and roundtable discussion on Sundays. He was also offered to try himself as an expert on Fox News, and if everything worked out, to become their permanent participant. In addition to national fame, this meant moving from the 37th local television market to the 8th. Jim flew to Phoenix and Washington to iron out all the details. A few weeks later, he and Annalise returned to Phoenix to start house hunting. They settled on a 500-square-foot Pueblo-style home on the outskirts of Scottsdale. The house was recently built and ready to move into. Because Jim had the money, the deal took only 10 days to close, allowing them to move before the start of the school year. Heidi joined the trip, found a job in her field and a cozy apartment nearby. On the last flight to Milwaukee, Jim reflected on 15 years of memories, what to take with him and what to get rid of. Upon their return, they began the process of packing, handing out, and throwing things away. Jim gave Linda's parents many photographs and mementos of her. Emma and Tom kept another collection of things that reminded them of their mother, and Jim kept a box of photographs and a few small mementos. Besides a couple of antiques he liked, Jim gave away furniture and household items to start over. This is what 15 years have come down to. Home had been a sad place for a long time, but now Jim was looking forward to his new life in Arizona with Annalise. He couldn't help but remember the last time he saw the house empty the day he and Linda moved in. Now it's time to leave and move on. Everyone gathered around Linda's flower garden, where her ashes rested, to say their final goodbyes. When the movers finished their work, it was too late to leave, so Jim planned to spend the night at a nearby Best Western hotel and leave in the morning. Their last dinner in town was at Five Guys. Jim doubted he would want to go to Wendy's again. The next morning, the time came everyone got into his SUV, and, crossing the city line, they shouted in unison, "Milwaukee sucks. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. 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 Click to the next one."